Okay, Griffin, let's take a look at your essay. So I'm going to start and kind of take it piece by piece. What I want to start with are these two things right here. So typically when we have an essay, hold on, let me pull this up. Bringing up the screen. So when you have your 5-paragraph essay or an essay structure in general, this is what you need. Okay, so you're going to have your introduction, your body paragraphs, and your conclusion. So with these, there's not really a limit or sentence, any kind of parameters, but I do want to talk about your introduction. So I think you would benefit from this because I remember from looking at your Iditarod essay or some other essay, your test essay, and I think, whoops, sorry about that. I think there's a few good things you have in here, but I think with structure, your essay would be that much better. So with your introduction, you want to go from broad into the specific. Well, that is spelled wrong. Specific. So this means you're going to start with your hook or way to introduce the topic. And then you kind of give some explaining of what's going on. And then you get to your thesis. And your thesis is your claim or position you are taking on in the essay. So when we looked at this, this is how the structure needs to be. Even if you do different paragraphs, this is how the introduction needs to basically go. You go from the broad and then you go into your thesis that is at the end. And what you have instead is you start with your thesis and then you kind of get into that introduction. So what you would want to do to revamp this and make it better is if you take a look at what you have written. I'm going to keep text only. Mercy killings are ethical. That is your thesis. I'm going to get rid of that. So killing someone may be the nicest. This is technically incorrect. So killing someone may be the nicest and most sensitive thing you could ever do to someone. So what I'm noticing for grammar is you're missing some words. So I know you were typing this on your phone, but be aware that I'm going to have to ding you on that one. If someone you love has an ailment, disease, or condition, so here we have a lack of commas, or condition that puts them through strenuous hours of pain and uncomfortableness, why let that person suffer? And I get rid of that period, just have a question mark. And then what you would do is your thesis would go at the end of this body paragraph, but not body paragraph, introduction, but what you need is let me bold this, underline, italicize. Introduction, you need an introduction or background information on mercy killing and what it is. You need to have this. So this is the thing you're missing in your introduction, is you need to kind of flip it around and then add some more details. So if you have something like this and then have your information there, you are good to go and your paper becomes better. And then as we move into your body paragraphs, so they're ethical because of someone like Dr. Jack Kevorkian, who was mercy killing patients who are constantly suffering. So this is an error I'm starting to notice. Mercy killing is a noun and not a verb. So if it's a verb, you could mercy kill someone, but mercy killing is just a thing. So if someone dies as a result of a mercy killing, then that is a mercy killing. They were not mercy killed. It's just an example of a mercy killing. And then you have some evidence, which is you have evidence, but you're lacking analysis. And if we take a look at this, he ended their lives pain-free, which is something that they hadn't been in a long time in some situations. So you do have the contraction there that you want to get rid of. This should be had not. But this writing is actually really, really good and can lead you into analysis right away. Because I can see your position is, well, because you put it in the beginning, is your thesis is that it's ethical. And they're living a life that is pain-free at this point. And that's good. But you don't have any analysis. And the way analysis comes back is you tie this back into how this demonstrates this is ethical. And you just need a few sentences to explain that, which would be something like, Kevorkian, because you didn't mention this, he assured they were comfortable and relaxed when he ended their lives pain-free. If you go to the Kevorkian article, there's a lot of good evidence you can use to back this up for an analysis, in the sense of he assured their patients had this pain-free, and you can explain that a little bit, but especially if you're focusing on this as so they don't suffer anymore, there's just a number of ways you could do it. So the bottom line is you need to have analysis and have sentences that go back into this. They're ethical. Actually, one thing as I'm noticing as I look at your thesis now, pain and suffering are kind of the same thing. You could probably divvy that up a different way. Okay, so your next two paragraphs would actually work a lot better together to function as one body paragraph. So mercy killings are also ethical for the fact that most conditions involving mercy killings involving the treatment the patients would have needed to stay healthy cost thousands and thousands of dollars. So you're getting a little bit into the healthcare aspect, and there's definitely moments in the article that you can talk about this. This is a little bit worded weird, so I'm not sure what's going on there. Mercy killings are also ethical for the fact that most conditions involving mercy killings the treatment. There's a lot of ways to do this. It's just something's missing here. You need to add something more to split up the sentences. But you go into this example with chemotherapy and radiation. Oh, and then you got a sentence that starts with an and. You're not going to want to do that. And you talk about how they're back to this is painful. It makes them sick. This is an alternative, but sometimes they may want something else, and it's whatever. And you definitely have things in the Kevorkian article and time that support this. So this is an example of a hypothetical where you're kind of using some prior knowledge that works if you tie in evidence from the articles that you had. So you need to make sure that you tie that in, and then you're kind of lacking all analysis here. How does this tie back into this being ethical? Because right now you just have, well, people suffer here, but you're not really tying it back into mercy killing, aside from, well, it's ethical because people go through so much for it. So you just need a little bit more there. And then as we close out your paper, you do bring up the opposition, but you're kind of more talking about the gray areas between here. And the reason why this doesn't quite work, first of all, this is Roswell instead of Roseville. I'm just going to assume that's from your phone. What I'm noticing in grammar is you have a lot of, let me start with grammar. Contractions, you need to get rid of. Commas are a concern. Missing words and word choice are some of the concerns I have for you as well. So you talk about this kind of gray area of the situation for killing his wife going through Alzheimer's. And then you talk to us about this is a mercy killing, but it's unethical and not handled appropriately. And then you tie it back into Kevorkian as how this is ethical. And this is a better way of doing it. And this is actually something that's a little bit difficult that not everyone is quite able to do. Is I'm noticing a lot of people doing these hypothetical situations, right? Where they want to answer, well, this is how we should have the boundaries. But they're doing that without substance. And this is why it works for you. You talk about the difference. Yes, sure, they didn't want him to suffer. But we need mercy killings in the way that Kevorkian did. Because he set up these precedents and he set up these standards. And this is how we need to go about doing it. So that's why it works for you. So your opposition is good to a certain extent that you address it, but then also talk about that gray area. And you specifically tie in Kevorkian and how that's an example of how we take these unethical mercy killings, if we see it as that way, into being more ethical, which is good. Instead of non-ethical, the word is unethical. That is technically not a word in that case. And then towards the end, you kind of start with your conclusion by restating the thesis, which These are the reasons why mercy killings are ethical. Just start your thesis. Well, when you get to your conclusion, let me go back to this Microsoft Word. In your conclusion, this is where you go from the specific into, that's wrong, hold on, into the broad. So you will start with your thesis, you restate it, and then you go into some recapping of your body paragraphs, and then you go into something to leave the reader with, a final hurrah, whatever it is. So you say, and why they could be used to benefit the people who are sick and dying. What you need to do is specifically say it's ethical, go back into the examples and just tie in, Kevorkian was a well-known doctor who performed mercy killings as a way to blah, 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 blah. Just kind of repeat what's going on there. And then there's actually probably a quick way that you could change this last sentence into being something that leaves the reader with something more. So let's look at your sentence. And why they could be used to benefit people who are sick and dying. Don't start a sentence with and as a coordinated conjunction. You could say something like, mercy killings are an ethical way to benefit people who are sick and dying by giving them a safe and autonomous way out. And the word autonomous means they basically have the decision to do it. And look at the difference between these two endings and why they can be used to benefit people who are sick and dying. Okay, they can be used to benefit. But instead you can say mercy killings are an ethical way to benefit people who are sick and dying by giving them a safe and autonomous way out. That leaves your reader with the recap of what you want them to understand, and that's a better way. So overall, Griffin, especially from seeing your test essay, you have some interesting ideas in here. I think what you need to work on is how to use structure in your papers to tie everything in together, and definitely add those analysis component, because that's kind of what you're missing at this point. So hopefully as we move on, this will make more sense and you can improve your writing from here. All right.